This is the Sony FE 90mm f2.8 macro lens. It is an E-mount fit lens for Sony full-frame cameras. It has an aperture range of f2.8 to f22. It has a 1:1 magnification ratio. It has manual and autofocus, as well as in-lens stabilization, and has a minimal focal distance of 11 inches. I recently picked up this lens for myself, and in this video I want to tell you why and what kind of things I shoot with it. I've actually been using it since 2015, on and off. I've been borrowing the lens and I've loved it every time I've had my hands on it. So I finally decided to buy the lens, and I wanted to share with you today why I decided to make that purchase, because it's not cheap. It's about an £800 lens, so it's not a light investment, but for me, I really feel that I'm going to get the most out of it by having it in my camera bag with me all of the time. So the primary reason that I bought this lens is for work purposes. My day job is in dentistry. I do a lot of dental photography and videography, and increasingly so. So I really needed to have this lens with me all the time at work so that I can capture those kind of photos. Everything in dentistry is absolutely tiny. Teeth are tiny, the tools are tiny, so you need the macro lens. There's absolutely no question about it, and this is the one I went for. You could go for a slightly wider macro lens for less of a cost, but I decided to go with the 90 because it's just a better focal length, I think, for getting those kind of shots. You don't distort the face too much when you come too close to the lens, and I'm really happy so far, and it's actually the one I've been using up to this date, albeit on my own, but it's worked really, really nicely. This is something that I'm learning a huge amount about, because it's completely different to any other type of photography or videography I do, and certainly that I share on this channel, but it's a really good challenge, and a lot of research has gone into the flash setup which I use with this lens for dental photography, because you really, really need it in those very dark conditions. And although I probably won't start sharing my dental photography on this channel, I will maybe share my flash setup, because actually it could be used for other type of macro photography as well, and I've learned a lot along the way, so that might be coming up soon. That's my primary reason for buying the lens. In addition to that, I think there's three main genres in which I would use the lens for, and I think it's a little bit underrated, to be honest with you, in terms of how versatile the lens actually is. So other genres I would use it for are, number one, portrait photography. You can get some really nice portrait shots with this lens. You can go wide open to 2.8, so you can pick out the person and blur the background. Obviously, you can adjust that as much as you want. But in addition to that, because it's a 90mm, you can get a little bit further away from your subject, and you can get those really nice, candid, natural, relaxed moments, instead of it being forced and then knowing that you've got the camera right in front of them. And I've been able to get some really stealthily kind of natural reactions and emotions from people as I've shot with this lens over time, and I've got some really nice pictures of even just kind of social occasions of friends and family, dogs, children, all of those kind of things, because you can just kind of lurk in the background and get that really nice shot. Secondly is day-to-day details. If you've ever seen my Instagram, or certainly I've probably shared photos on here, I love capturing details of my day-to-day life, usually a cup of coffee, and you can really pick out those nice details, both on video and photo. You can see the coffee drips, or you can pick out little details in tech or home or whatever it happens to be, but it adds to the story if you're trying to take multiple images and portray, you know, a story of a day or a place or whatever it happens to be. I think these macro shots are really, really nice detail to add into the mix. And finally, number three, landscape, controversially. Usually, I guess a landscape lens would be considered as quite a wide angle lens, but as time's gone on, I've realised that a telephoto is actually quite useful for landscape photography, and I personally don't own a telephoto lens anymore. I sold my 70-200 a while back when I decided I couldn't cope with anything that was an f4 lens. I needed the wide open. I do miss it a little bit and sometimes, but it is a big lens to carry around. So actually, I thought having the 90mm in my bag could act as a really nice sort of intermediate telephoto, which can also be cropped because I shoot on full frame. So it will give me that benefit to crop in and get even further in, tighter into things. But certainly I've shot many shots, landscape shots, on a more of a telephoto lens, because you can pick out details of things like mountaintops and things like this. So it's worth considering having a telephoto for landscape photography as well. And I hope this will kind of fill that little gap where my longest focal length currently, or just before I bought this, was 50mm. So it's going to boost me right up to 90. So that's quite exciting. And I've got a few landscape trips coming up this year, so I shall put it to the test. Overall, really, really happy. I decided in the end to go with the Sony. I did and about a Tamron and a Samyang, but due to the reasons I've just mentioned, if it was just dental photography, I might have gone with the Samyang, but it was a manual focus only lens. And if I wanted to use it for kind of capturing portraits and moments in time, I really thought that maybe the autofocus would be quite important. So hence the reason I went for the Sony. And if at all possible, I do try and stick with the Sonys because obviously you get the Sony quality. And I'm really, really happy with it. But if you are looking to buy a macro, it's not a cheap lens. So do look about, as I say, at the third-party lenses. And indeed, if you want to get started, you can look at those slightly wider focal lengths. There's usually a 50mm macro, which will be a lot cheaper if you want to get started into things. But I do hope that you found this useful. Maybe you now want a macro lens. Apologies in advance for your bank balance there. But it is a really, really nice lens to have in your arsenal. And I think very versatile. So I hope you did enjoy the video. If you have any questions about the Sony or any macro or whatever it happens to be, drop them in the comments below. Happy to get into a chat about that, and I will look forward to seeing you in the next video.